Okay, let's continue where we left off yesterday about the Rosh Chodesh. And we were talking all about the various different things of Rosh Chodesh. But Stam is an interesting point. There's a minig that women don't do certain work on Rosh Chodesh. Basically, those things that people don't do on Chol HaMoed. So we don't, only women, men don't have such a minig. Women don't do such things on Rosh Chodesh. For instance, they won't do laundry, they won't sew, things like that. What you don't do Chol HaMoed, they won't do on Rosh Chodesh. Because Rosh Chodesh was a Yom Tiv actually given to the women. So how does Rosh Chodesh get to the women? So it says in the Medrash that the 3 Yomim Tevim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, correspond with Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. The Malachim came to Avram, it was Pesach. That's why Avram Avinu said to Sarah, Lushi vasi ugais, make round cakes. Rashi says it was Pesach, so he told them to bake matzah. Shavuos has to do with Akedas Yitzchok, because the shofar that blew at Matan Torah, it says was the left horn of the ram of Yitzchok that took Yitzchok's place by Akedah. It says in the Pirkei Rabbi Lazar, the left horn was used by Matan Torah, Kol HaShofar, and the right horn will be used when Mashiach comes. So it says, and Yaakov, it says in the Pasuk, so we know the 3 Yomim Tevim correspond with Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. Then you have the 12 months, correspond with the 12 Shvatim. When there's a leap year, then you have sometimes 13 Shvatim. Because if you count Menashe and Ephraim, then you don't count Levi. But if you count Menashe and Ephraim and Levi, so then you have 13 months. But normally it's 12 months. So it says in the Medrash, when the Yidden sinned in the Egel, except Shevet Levi, which was not part of the 12 months, 12 tribes, so Hashem took away the Yom Tov from men, and he gave it to the women, because women were not involved in the Egel in any way whatsoever. So because women were not involved in the worshipping the Egel, so Hashem gave them a special Yom Tov, which is Rosh Chodesh. Besides the fact that the Levana has to do with Malchus, and women are the level of Malchus, and women's cycles go by the lunar calendar. There's a lot of things that women are connected to the level of Malchus. So therefore, women have a custom that on Rosh Chodesh, they don't do laundry, they don't sew, they don't do, but the household things that you do, like cooking, all that, they're allowed to do. Another interesting halacha is, this is already, it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, but it's also from Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, and that is that you don't take haircuts on Rosh Chodesh. On Rosh Chodesh, you don't take haircuts. And according to Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, if even sakana yesh bedavar, it's danger, whatever that means. But it's dangerous to take haircuts on Rosh Chodesh, even, it says in Shulchan Aruch, even if Rosh Chodesh is Friday. This month is Shabbos and Sunday, but even when Rosh Chodesh is Friday, it says in Shulchan Aruch, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, you don't take haircuts on Rosh Chodesh, even L'Kavod Shabbos, because it's Sakana. There's a very interesting thing, if it applies to cutting nails or not. So if you look in Sefer HaChasidim from Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, so over there it says, hair cutting and nails. You don't cut on Rosh Chodesh. When the Alter Rebbe brings on the din in Hilchos Shabbos, in the preparation for Shabbos, so over there he only brings down about haircuts. He doesn't bring down about nail cutting at all on Rosh Chodesh. So the question is, does he not hold of it? Does he hold of it? But the compromise, so to speak, is when Rosh Chodesh is Friday, you could cut your nails. But on a regular Rosh Chodesh, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you don't cut your nails if it's Rosh Chodesh. But L'Kavod Shabbos, you're allowed to cut nails even if it's on Rosh Chodesh. Okay, that's as far as the day itself goes. Now, yesterday we started talking about Hallel, about half Hallel is a minig, that's where it's an argument if you say bracha on Hallel or not. But when you say Hallel, you have to stand when you say Hallel. Okay? You have to stand, they learn it out from a pasuk, There has to be ba'amida, that you have to say, obviously somebody who can't stand in a wheelchair, whatever, so then they're allowed to sit. But normally you say Hallel with standing. You should try to always say Hallel together with the minyan. You're supposed to say Hallel with the minyan. To the extent in Shulchan Aruch it says, what happens if you came late to shul? It happens. Sometimes. Very rare. But, like in this shul, everybody's always on time. So what happens if you're late and the minyan is davening? So in Shulchan Aruch it says like this. If you're in the middle of Psukei de Zimra, when there's half Hallel, that remember we mentioned yesterday, it's a minhag, so therefore many poskim say you don't make a bracha. So what they hold is that in the middle of Psukei de Zimra, that means from after Baruch Shem until Yishtabach, you say Hallel with the minyan. Half Hallel, because it's also Psukei de Zimra. It's also Hallel, it's also praising Hashem. If it's a day of full Hallel, then you can't, because you have to make a bracha before and after. But it says, in halacha it says, that if you come late to shul and the minyan saying Hallel and you didn't daven Shachris yet, for instance, you're supposed to say Hallel with the minyan. That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. By Chassidim, they will daven in the order anyway. They'll say Hallel, not with the minyan. But even the Rabbeim, that like the Rebbe Rashab would daven very long on Shabbos, but if it was Rosh Chodesh or Yom Tif, he didn't daven long because he wanted to say Hallel with the minyan. So this is a very important thing, especially on the day of Rosh Chodesh, something you catch up to the minyan to be able to say Hallel together with the minyan and not afterwards. Okay, also, when I ask something, you just, what?
So we do it or we don't do it?
We do what?
Say Hallel with the minyan or we wait to say?
I can't deal with very big chassidim. I deal with normal people. In Shulchan Aruch it says you come on time and then you daven Hallel with the minyan. That's what you're supposed to do. That's it. What do you mean if you didn't? If you didn't, you do tshuva. What do? You do tshuva and you find out what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, next. Now on Rosh Chodesh, not the Shabbos because it's Shabbos, but on Rosh Chodesh you have 4 aliyahs. Remember we mentioned already, you have 3 aliyahs Monday and Thursday in Shabbos Mincha, and then fast day. You have 4 aliyahs on Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed. On Yom Tif there's 5 aliyahs, Yom Kippur 6 aliyahs, and Shabbos you have 7 aliyahs. Because the holier the day, the more aliyahs you have. In this respect, Shabbos is even greater than Yom Kippur. In this respect. So therefore, on Shabbos you have 7 aliyahs, Yom Kippur 6, Yom Tov 5, that's excluding Maftir, because Maftir is an additional aliyah for different reasons. So therefore, you have, on Rosh Chodesh you have 4 aliyahs. The only problem, if you ever notice in the Kriya of Rosh Chodesh, there's one pasuk that we repeat. We finish the first aliyah, and then the second aliyah repeats the last pasuk of the first aliyah. V'amarta lahem. It repeats it. Why? To start the aliyah. Because there's a lot of dinim involved. You have to have at least 3 psukim, and you can't stop in the middle of a parsha. It's a whole Megillah. But like Marshall, this Shabbos, which is Rosh Chodesh also, so you have the 7 aliyahs, and then in the second Sefer Torah, you read Uvayim HaShabbos. You don't start from the beginning. Start from Uvayim HaShabbos as the Maftir Aliyah, and then you have the Haftarah of Rosh Chodesh, and because it's Sunday is also Rosh Chodesh, so you have different customs what to do. Our custom is we say the first and last pasuk of Machar Chodesh also. Okay, anyway. So, that's as far as Rosh Chodesh goes. Rosh Chodesh, you're not allowed to make eulogies. You're not allowed to do tzaddik hadin, which is said at a funeral. Okay, now we'll go into, a few minutes we have left, into the dinim of Kiddush Levana. Okay? There's an obligation because the Jews are likened to the moon. The Goyim, it says in the Medrash, are likened to the sun, And the Yidden, Yisrael Daimim Levana, Meidim Levana, Daimim Levana, the Medrash says the Jews are likened to the moon in many, many different aspects. So because the Jews are likened to the moon, and the moon refreshes itself every Rosh Chodesh, and Rosh Chodesh the moon becomes new. So every month we make a bracha celebrating the birth of the moon. And it's important because the Jews are likened to the moon. Now, the order of doing Birchas HaChodesh is, number one, it has to be night. You can't do it before nightfall. Number one. Number two, you have to be able to see the moon. Sometimes if it's very cloudy and you don't even see the outline of the moon, then you don't do Kiddush Levana. If you can see the outline of the moon, even though it's basically covered by clouds and you're afraid it's going to not be any better, so then you can do Kiddush Levana as long as you see the outline of the moon.
So like there's wispy clouds.
There's wispy clouds, but you can still see the outline of the moon, then you could do it. But you can't do Kiddush Levana during the day, even if you see the moon. A lot of times you can, during the day, you see the, in the far up there, you see the moon. Only you can do Kiddush Levana at night when you can benefit from the light. Now, the bracha is, again, well, let's put it this way. You're supposed to do Kiddush Levana under the sky. What happened? Not in a building. Even though you could look outside and see the moon, you don't do it inside a building. What happens, God forbid, if there's no way of going out, somebody's sick, and they're confined to their bed, and they see the Levana through the window, so then they could do it next to the window. But you shouldn't do Kiddush Levana in the house, you should do it outside in the backyard, or outside in the street, whatever. Huh? Under a shed? What do you mean? A shed is a shed. A shed is a building.
No, not a building.
Under an awning?
Under
Awning. Yes? Yeah, you could do it under an awning. It's best to do it, it says in the expression, Tachas HaShemayim, but if there's you can't walk outside the awning, then you could do it under the awning. But it's best to do it mamish under the sun, under the sky.
Also like part of that?
Trees are not a problem. It's still called Tachas HaShemayim. Okay, now, the best time to do Kiddush Levana is halachically like this. Not before 3 days of the birth of the moon, which is called the Meled, that when you bench Rosh Chodesh, we announce it. According to Kabbalah, you're not supposed to do it until after the 7th day from the birth of the moon. Unless if you're in a situation that, like in Russia in the winters, and there's no it's full clouds, there's you don't see a Levana for many months. So then, right after 3 days, you could do it. Baruch Hashem in California, we usually don't have a problem of doing Kiddush Levana in the proper time. So you have to wait not before, according to halacha, not before 3 days. According to Kabbalah, you do it when the moon is already 50%, which is after a week. And it's also better to do it Motzei Shabbos. Why is it preferable to do it Saturday night? Because you're dressed already Shabbosdik, you're dressed in nice clothing, there's a lot of people usually in shul, so the best time to do it is Motzei Shabbos. But what happens if Motzei Shabbos is running late and if there's no, you have no Levana or whatever, then you do it any day of the week. People don't. People don't get dressed up special for Kiddush Levana, but ideally it says, the reason why you do it Motzei Shabbos is because people are dressed up. But if not, you don't see people putting on Shabbos clothing for that. They don't have to. Okay, one last thing. Before you do Kiddush Levana, okay, we should have a class right before we do Kiddush Levana. People should know what to do. The proper way of doing Kiddush Levana is as follows. You face east. Okay? Like in this place, you face this way. Even if the Levana is there, you don't face there. You face east, which is this way. You face east. You say the Hallelujah, that initial paragraph. Then you put your feet together and you say the bracha. But before you make the bracha, you look at the moon. That show what you're making the bracha on. But it says in halacha that after you look at the moon and you start the bracha, you should not look at the moon another time during the bracha. Why not? Because then it looks like you're davening to the moon. That you're davening to the moon. It doesn't look right. So before you start the bracha, you look at the moon, make sure it's there, so to speak. This is what I'm making the bracha on. Then you make the bracha with your feet together. Okay? Then you have, after the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Mechadish Chadashim, then you have the saying, Baruch Eisach Yetzah Baruch, that whole thing. So as it says in the Siddur, before you do Baruch Eisach, you pick up your feet 3 times, like by Nakdish, by, Chodesh and Baruch and Yimlech. And then you say that paragraph 3 times, and each time before you start Baruch Eisach, you pick up your feet 3 times like you do by Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. There is a segula, it says, for the teeth, that when you say, that my enemies cannot touch me, there's a segula, you put your hands on your teeth. It's supposed to help for teeth problems. It's brought down in Swan, but whoever watched the Rebbe do Kiddush Levana, the Rebbe did it when he said, "Kshem chani reiki kenegdech beini yochel l'ngayabach kach lo yuchlo kol oivay l'ngayab. So then you touch your teeth. You do it 3 times. Anyway, we'll leave it at that.